Dr. June sat in his cramped lab, rubbing his tired eyes. For 3 years, he had dedicated his life to listening for signals from space. Most people thought it was a waste of time. His colleagues at the Global Space Alliance often joked about his alien obsession. But June knew better. The universe was too vast for humans to be alone. On that ordinary Tuesday morning, the computer alert sounded different. Not the usual static or cosmic background noise. This was structured, a pattern. June's heart raced as he adjusted his glasses and leaned closer to the screen. "This can't be right," he whispered. But the signal continued, clear and unmistakable. He reached for his phone with shaking hands and called Director Hyun. "Sir, I think you need to see this immediately." Within hours, the lab was filled with government officials, military personnel, and fellow scientists. The message, once decoded, was simple and chilling. Surrender your resources. Resistance is futile. You have 2 Earth rotations to comply. NAR Collective, as they called themselves, had been watching Earth for decades. They had studied human languages, mapped our defenses, and cataloged our resources. To them, Earth was just another conquest in a long history of planetary acquisitions. "What do we know about their capabilities?" asked General Hyun, her face grim as she studied the projection of the approaching fleet. Dr. Minji, the head physicist, pointed to several large ships at the front of the formation. Based on their energy signatures, they could potentially destroy our major cities within minutes. The room fell silent. The United Nations Security Council connected via emergency video link. For the first time in human history, the petty conflicts that had divided nations seemed trivial. A Chinese general nodded respectfully to his American counterpart. The Russian president spoke without a translator to the European Union representative. "We have 24 hours, said President Lee, addressing the global emergency broadcast. "But know this. Throughout human history, we have faced extinction many times. Ice ages, plagues, world wars. Each time we not only survived, but emerged stronger. Around the world, people gathered in their homes, in public squares, and places of worship. Some prayed, some rioted. Many simply held their loved ones close. In Tokyo, an elderly man taught his grandson to fly a kite, saying, 'Whatever happens tomorrow, today we live.'" Dr. June worked through the night with an international team of linguists and code breakers, trying to learn more about the invaders. "Their language structure suggests a hive mind society," he explained to General Hyun. "They don't understand individual choice or sacrifice. To them, surrender is the only logical response when faced with superior technology." "Then they know nothing about humans," replied Hyun. As dawn broke around the world, satellite images showed the NAR fleet entering Earth's orbit. Their ships were massive, sleek metal structures that reflected sunlight like giant mirrors. Beautiful and terrifying. The world's military forces stood ready, knowing they were outmatched but unwilling to surrender without a fight. Fighter jets from 30 nations took to the skies. Naval vessels from former enemy states sailed side by side. When the deadline passed, the NAR commander's face appeared on screens worldwide, humanoid, but with gray skin and eyes too large and dark. "Your time has expired. You have chosen resistance." The first attacks came with frightening precision. Defense satellites blinked out of existence. Military bases went dark. Yet the response from Earth was immediate and unified. In South Korea, aerospace engineer Moon watched as her experimental electromagnetic pulse weapon successfully disabled a smaller NAR vessel, sending it crashing into the ocean. In Brazil, a teenage hacker named Tiago discovered a way to interfere with the aliens' communication system, buying precious minutes for evacuations. "They expected us to cower," said General Hyun during an emergency meeting in an underground bunker beneath Seoul. "They expected us to turn on each other, to fracture under pressure." "That's what the other species did," confirmed Dr. June, reviewing the data they'd gathered from intercepted NAR communications. "The collective has conquered 16 worlds before ours. All surrendered within hours of first contact." "Well," said President Lee, dust from a nearby explosion coating his normally immaculate suit. They've never met humans before. As night fell again, much of Earth lay in ruins. Major cities had been targeted first: New York, Beijing, London, Moscow. Millions dead. Yet in the rubble, survivors were already organizing, adapting, planning. Dr. June lost his brother when Busan was hit. He allowed himself 5 minutes to grieve before returning to work. That night, looking at the stars now partially obscured by the Nar fleet, he made a promise to himself and to humanity. "You think you've won," he whispered toward the sky. "But you've just made the biggest mistake in your collective history. You've awakened humanity's wrath, and we don't know how to stay down." In the darkness across the globe, humans prepared for a fight unlike any in our history. Not for territory or resources or ideology. This time we fought for our very existence. And despite the devastating first day, something remarkable was happening. Humanity had united at last. The first contact had been brutal, but it was only the beginning. The sky rained fire for 3 days. After the initial Nar attack, Dr. June had barely slept. The underground facility beneath what was once Seoul National University hummed with desperate activity. Screens displayed satellite images of the devastation above. Once proud cities reduced to smoking ruins, refugee columns stretching for miles along highways, Navy vessels sinking in harbors worldwide. "They're targeting our communication networks next," said Professor Yoon, her face illuminated by the blue glow of her monitor. Dark circles ringed her eyes. Like everyone else, she hadn't changed clothes in days. "Once those go down coordinating, a resistance will be nearly impossible." Dr. June nodded grimly. He'd lost his brother in the Busan attack, but there had been no time to mourn. The world was burning, and humanity was losing, badly. "We've intercepted some of their communications," he said, spreading printouts across the makeshift conference table. "Their language structure is fascinating. They refer to themselves as a collective, never as individuals." General Hyun entered the room, followed by 2 young soldiers carrying a metal crate. Her uniform was torn and dirty, her left arm bandaged. "That what I think it is?" asked Professor Yoon. The general nodded. "Debris from one of their smaller ships, shot down over Jeju. We need you to make sense of it." The crate contained twisted metal fragments and what appeared to be circuit boards. But unlike anything humans had developed, the material was both metallic and somehow organic, pulsing faintly with a soft blue glow. As the team worked through the night, reports continued to flood in. Tokyo, gone. Sydney, under siege. Moscow, silent for the past 12 hours. Major, world leaders were either confirmed dead or in hiding. "They're methodical," observed Dr. June, studying attack pattern data. "Military targets first, then government centers, then infrastructure. They want us alive but helpless." "Like cattle," muttered General Hyun. The following morning brought news of a broadcast. The Nar commander's face appeared on every working screen worldwide. His features were almost human, 2 eyes, a mouth, but the proportions were wrong and his skin had a gray metallic sheen. "Your resistance is both unexpected and futile," the commander stated flatly. 16 worlds before, yours have joined the collective. Some resisted initially. None resisted for long. The facility fell silent as everyone watched. "Your species demonstrates unusual stubbornness. This is inefficient. Further resistance will result in escalation of consequences. You have 6 hours to surrender world leadership to Nar representatives." The broadcast ended. General Hyun slammed her fist on the table. "Surrender isn't an option," she said. "But we're outmatched in every way." A young technician raised her hand hesitantly. "Sir, Dr. June, I've been analyzing their communication frequencies. There's something odd about how they coordinate their ships." Dr. June moved to her station. His eyes widened as he studied her. "Findings. They're all connected, like a hive mind," he said. "Each ship is almost like a limb of the same organism." "Which means?" asked General Hyun. "Which means," said Professor Yoon, joining them, "if we could disrupt that connection, Even. Briefly, we could buy some time, finished Dr. June. Time to understand their technology better. The next hours passed in a blur of activity. Young volunteers were dispatched around the world via whatever transportation remained functional, carrying makeshift devices designed to interfere with the NAR communication frequency. 2 hours before the deadline, they were ready. It won't stop them, warned Dr. June. At best, it will confuse them temporarily. Sometimes that's all you need in battle, replied General Hyun. A moment of confusion. The devices activated simultaneously worldwide. On screens across the facility, they watched as NAR ships suddenly broke formation, some colliding with each other, others firing on their own kind. It's working, someone shouted. The celebration was short-lived. Within minutes, the NAR adapted, establishing new communication protocols. But the brief chaos had allowed several military strikes to succeed, bringing down 3 major ships. The NAR response was swift and brutal. They targeted population centers next, not to destroy them completely, but to demonstrate power. Seoul, already damaged from the first attack, now lay in complete ruins. The death toll worldwide reached hundreds of millions. That night, in the dim light of emergency generators, Dr. June sat alone, staring at a family photo, his brother smiling back at him from a world that no longer existed. Professor Yoon found him there. She sat beside him in silence for a long moment. My grandmother used to tell me stories, she finally said, about the Japanese occupation, then the war. She said the darkest times show what people are made of. Dr. June looked up at her. And what are we made of? Something the NAR don't understand, she replied softly. They see us as primitive, unorganized, emotional. But they're missing something crucial. What's that? We've spent our entire history fighting against overwhelming odds. Plagues, ice ages, our own wars. Survival isn't just what we do, it's who we are. Outside, distant explosions lit up the night sky. Below ground, scientists and soldiers worked tirelessly, studying alien technology, adapting human weapons, sending encrypted messages to resistance cells forming worldwide. The initial defeat was devastating. But in lab benches and bunkers across the globe, something the NAR hadn't counted on was stirring. Humans weren't giving up. They were getting angry, and they were learning. 6 months passed since the NAR collective first darkened Earth's skies. 6 months of hiding, of whispering, of burying the dead. 6 months of learning. Dr. June stared at the alien device on the workbench before him. The metal casing had been removed, revealing a nest of circuitry unlike anything humans had designed. It glowed faintly blue in the dim light of the underground lab. I think I've got it, he said, voice hoarse from lack of sleep. Professor Yoon looked up from her own workstation. Her once neat appearance had given way to practical survival. Hair cropped short, face leaner, eyes sharper. The translation algorithm? Better. June couldn't help the small smile that formed. I think I understand how their weapons work. The lab, once a university basement, now served as the nerve center for what remained of the Korean resistance. Similar pockets existed worldwide, scientists and soldiers working together in the shadows while the NAR harvested Earth's resources above ground. General Hyun entered, followed by a young scout named Min. The general's uniform was long gone, replaced by practical civilian clothes that wouldn't draw attention. Her authority remained unmistakable. Report, she said simply. Min stepped forward. The NAR are moving the processing plant from Daejeon to Incheon. 12 transport vessels, minimal guards. They're not expecting trouble. They never do, murmured Professor Un. That's their weakness. They think they've broken us. General, Hyun studied the crude map spread across the center table. This matches the pattern we're seeing globally. They're consolidating operations near shipping ports, getting ready to move our resources off-world. Then we're running out of time, said Dr. June. He stood and moved to a locked cabinet at the back of the lab. The others followed. Inside were 6 devices, each about the size of a dinner plate, assembled from salvaged alien tech and human ingenuity. "Are they ready?" asked the general. June nodded. "We've tested them on the smaller pieces of equipment. They work exactly as theorized. The NAR's weapons use an energy signature that resonates at a specific frequency. These devices create an opposing wave." "In simple terms?" asked Min. Professor Yoon smiled thinly. "Their guns won't work." The plan spread through secure channels to resistance cells worldwide. The date was set, October 17th, Operation Phoenix. The night before, Dr. June couldn't sleep. He sat alone in his quarters, a converted storage closet, and held his brother's watch. It no longer worked, damaged in the attack that took his life, but June kept it anyway. A reminder. A soft knock at the door. Professor Yoon entered without waiting for a response. "You should rest," she said. "Tomorrow will test all of us." "I keep thinking about what's at stake," he replied. "If we fail, we won't." She sat beside him. "6 months ago, we were scattered and afraid. Now we're coordinated. We have their technology. We understand how they think. They've conquered 16 worlds before ours, and those worlds weren't Earth." Her hand found his in the darkness. "Those worlds didn't have humans. Dawn broke over a planet that barely resembled the one the NAR had first attacked. Cities lay in ruins. Forests had been cleared for resource extraction. The skies, once blue, now carried a perpetual gray haze from alien processing plants. But beneath the devastation, humanity waited. The first attack came in Sydney. A small team infiltrated a NAR fuel depot and activated one of June's devices. When the guards tried to fire, their weapons simply clicked uselessly. Human weapons, conventional guns and explosives, worked just fine. As news of the Sydney success spread, resistance cells worldwide launched synchronized attacks on NAR outposts. From London to Lima, Tokyo to Tehran, humans emerged from hiding. Some had June's devices. Others relied on makeshift weapons and sheer numbers. In Incheon, Dr. June moved with General Hyun's strike team. The processing plant loomed ahead, NAR guards patrolling its perimeter. The device in his pack hummed softly. "Remember," whispered the general to her assembled fighters. "Even without their energy weapons, they're stronger than we are. Be smart. Be quick." The attack began at precisely noon. June activated the device and watched as the NAR guards frantically tried to use their weapons against the sudden human assault. Confusion spread through their ranks. A species that had relied on technological superiority for millennia suddenly found themselves vulnerable. Professor Yoon led a second team into the facility itself, their mission to capture intact alien computers. Min and his scouts provided cover, using conventional human weapons that the NAR had dismissed as primitive. The battle was chaotic, brutal, and swift. By sunset, the Incheon processing plant was under human control. Similar reports flooded in from around the world. Not all operations succeeded. Resistance cells in Moscow and Cairo were lost entirely. But for the first time, humanity had scored a meaningful victory. That night, as medics treated the wounded and engineers studied the captured facility, Dr. June intercepted a NAR transmission. His translation algorithm was still imperfect, but the message was clear enough. Request immediate reinforcement. Human resistance exceeds all predicted parameters. They are adapting our technology at unprecedented rates. He showed the message to General Hyun and Professor Yoon. "They're calling for help," said the general, a grim smile on her face. "They're afraid," corrected Yoon. Outside, survivors were emerging from hiding places to join the resistance. Word of Operation Phoenix had spread like wildfire, rekindling hope that had nearly been extinguished. More battles would come. The NAR still controlled most of the planet, but something fundamental had changed. Later, as dawn approached, Dr. June stood on the roof of the captured facility. In the distance, he could see a NAR command ship gliding through the hazy sky, its lights scanning the ground below. Searching, worried. "We've surprised them," said Professor Yoon, joining him. "They didn't expect this level of coordination from a primitive species." June nodded. The counterattack was just the beginning. They still outmatch us technologically. But we have something they don't understand, she replied, watching as volunteers below unloaded captured alien equipment. We adapt. We learn. We fight harder when things seem hopeless. Is that enough? She turned to look at him, determination etched in every line of her face. It has to be, because we're not fighting for conquest like they are. We're fighting for home. Below them, as the new day began, humanity prepared for the next phase of a war that would determine their very existence. The captured Nar vessel hung in the abandoned mining facility, its sleek metal hull reflecting the work lights positioned around it. Dr. June circled the ship slowly, still amazed that they had managed to take it intact. 3 months had passed since Operation Phoenix, and humanity had clawed back control of several key regions on Earth. But everyone knew the real battle would be fought above their heads. Are you going to stare at it all day, or are we going to fly it? Professor Yoon asked, ducking under a support beam as she entered the cavernous space. Despite the gravity of their situation, a small smile played on her lips. I'm trying to convince myself this isn't completely insane, June replied. The plan had come together with remarkable speed after they'd captured the first small Nar scout ships. Teams of engineers and pilots from countries that had once pointed weapons at each other now worked side by side, united by an enemy that threatened them all. Chinese aerospace engineers collaborated with American test pilots. Russian weapons specialists shared knowledge with Japanese computer experts. The simulator runs look promising, Yoon said, handing him a tablet with the latest test results. The neural interface is alien, but our brains aren't as different from theirs as they thought. June scrolled through the data. The first human pilots had struggled to connect with the ship's control systems, which were designed to link directly with Nar minds. But Professor Yoon's team had developed an adapter, part technology, part biochemistry, that allowed humans to interface with the alien vessels. And the weapons systems? Operational, she confirmed. We've managed to reverse engineer their energy weapons. Limited ammunition, but powerful. Above them, the facility doors began to slide open, revealing a patch of night sky. Stars twinkled in the darkness, seemingly peaceful, but June knew better. Up there, the Nar fleet regrouped, preparing for what they assumed would be their final assault on a troublesome planet. It's time, called General Hyun from the observation deck. The other bases are ready. Similar operations were unfolding at hidden facilities across the globe. In the Nevada desert beneath the Amazon rainforest within the Australian outback, humanity prepared to take the fight to space. The next morning, pilots gathered for their final briefing. They represented every continent, every major nation. Once such cooperation would have seemed impossible. Now it was their only hope. You've all trained on the simulators, General Hyun began, her voice echoing in the large space. But the real thing will be different. The neural link is intense. You'll feel the ship as if it's part of your body. A young pilot raised her hand. Will it hurt? Professor Yoon stepped forward. Not physically, but it might be emotionally overwhelming. These ships weren't designed for human minds. You'll need to stay focused. June watched the pilots' faces. Some looked scared, others determined. All understood what was at stake. The Nar believe they've almost broken us, the general continued. Their main fleet is positioned around their command station orbiting Mars. Our intelligence suggests they're preparing for a final sweep of major population centers. They don't expect us to come to them. The mission plan appeared on the large screen behind her. It was audacious, perhaps even foolhardy. But after studying Nar tactics for nearly a year, they understood their enemy's greatest weakness: overconfidence. As the briefing concluded, June pulled aside the lead pilot, a former Korean Air Force officer named Jin. Remember, their communication relies on that central hub. If we can disrupt it, even temporarily. I know. Jin nodded. Hit hard, hit fast, and target their command systems. Launch day dawned clear and cold. The captured vessels, 30 in total worldwide, were prepped for their journey. Each carried a small crew of pilots, engineers, and soldiers. Dr. June and Professor Yoon would fly in the lead ship alongside Jin and his co-pilot. "I never expected my career would lead to space," Yoon remarked as they suited up. "I never expected aliens would try to colonize Earth," June replied. "Yet here we are." The neural interface felt cold against his temple as technicians helped secure it. June had tested it before, but never for an extended mission. As the connection activated, he gasped. Suddenly he could feel the ship, its systems, its weapons, its energy core pulsing like a heart. "Easy," murmured Yoon beside him. "Let it settle." Launch sequence began as afternoon shadows lengthened across the facility floor. The alien engines hummed to life, a sound that once triggered fear now representing hope. Jin's voice came through the internal communication system. "All systems go. Neural interface stable. Preparing for ascent." The ship rose smoothly, hovering momentarily before shooting upward through the open ceiling doors. June's stomach lurched, but the sensation quickly passed as the vessel's internal gravity stabilized. Below them, Earth fell away, a blue and green jewel marred by the scars of Nar occupation. The atmosphere thinned, then disappeared. They were in space. Other teams reporting successful launches, reported the communications officer. All ships accounted for. The first challenge came as they passed the moon. A small Nar patrol detected them and moved to intercept. Jin reacted instantly, the neural link allowing him to maneuver the ship with thoughts rather than physical controls. "Weapons hot," he announced. The energy weapons fired, brilliant beams of concentrated light that struck the first patrol ship squarely. It exploded in silence, the vacuum of space swallowing any sound. "They're alerting the main fleet," said Yoon, monitoring the communication frequencies. "Good," replied General Hyun from her position at the tactical station. "Let them know we're coming." The journey to Mars took less time than June expected. The alien propulsion systems were far more advanced than anything humans had developed. As the red planet grew larger in their viewports, so did the Nar command station, a massive structure orbiting like a small moon. "All ships assume attack formation," ordered Jin. The scattered Earth vessels consolidated into 3 strike groups. The Nar, finally realizing they faced their own technology, scrambled to respond. But the element of surprise gave humanity a critical advantage. The battle erupted in flashes of energy weapons and conventional explosives. Jin piloted their vessel through the chaos with remarkable skill, the neural interface allowing reactions faster than would otherwise be possible. "Target their communication array," instructed General Hyun. Jin complied, bringing their ship around for a direct approach to the command station. Nar vessels moved to intercept, but other human ships provided cover. "We're taking heavy fire," warned the engineering officer. "Hold course," replied Hyun. The command station grew larger in their viewports. Its communication array, a sprawling antenna structure, came into targeting range. Jin fired, and the human-modified weapons struck. True, the array exploded in a spectacular shower of debris. Almost immediately, the Nar fleet's coordinated movements faltered. Without central command, individual ships began acting independently, some continuing to fight while others retreated. "It's working," exclaimed Yoon. "Their hive communication is disrupted." The human fleet pressed the advantage, targeting key systems on the command station and disabling rather than destroying Nar vessels where possible. Each captured ship would expand humanity's space fleet. Hours later, as Earth rose over Mars's horizon, the battle reached its conclusion. The Nar command structure had been shattered, their remaining ships retreating to the outer planets. In the Iwam lead vessel, exhausted but triumphant, Dr. June looked at the view screen showing their home planet. "We did it," said Professor Yoon softly beside him. "We actually took the fight to space." "This isn't over," June cautioned. "They'll regroup." "Of course they will," she agreed. "But they'll do it knowing something they didn't before." "What's that?" Her tired face broke into a genuine smile. "That humans don't know when they're beaten. The observation deck of the human flagship Phoenix offered a breathtaking view of Europa. Jupiter's ice-covered moon glowed softly against the backdrop of infinite stars, its surface scarred by ancient impacts and crisscrossed with reddish lines like veins in marble. Dr. June stood at the viewport, hands clasped behind his back, watching as the remaining NAR vessels adjusted their formation in the distance. 3 years had passed since humanity had taken its first tentative steps into space warfare. 3 years of hard-fought battles, crushing defeats and unexpected victories. 3 years that had transformed Earth's scattered resistance into an interplanetary fighting force. "They're requesting communication again," said Professor Yoon, entering the observation deck. She'd changed in these years. They all had. Her once gentle academic demeanor had hardened into something more resolute. A thin scar ran from her left temple to her jawline, a reminder of a near miss during the Battle of Phobos. "Let them wait," replied June. "They made us wait when they first came to our world." Admiral Hyun, her promotion acknowledged by all human forces after her leadership during the Mars campaign, joined them at the viewport. Her uniform, designed after the fusion of Earth's remaining military forces, bore insignia representing nations that no longer existed as separate entities. "The fleet is in position," she reported. "All ships ready." The human armada spread out behind them, over 300 vessels of various sizes. Some were captured NAR ships, repurposed and modified. Others were human-built, incorporating alien technology with Earth engineering. Together, they had pushed the NAR back from Mars, past the asteroid belt, all the way to Jupiter's orbit. "It's almost difficult to believe," murmured Yoon, gazing at their fleet. 3 years ago, we were hiding in bunkers hoping to survive another day. And now we've got them cornered," said Admiral Hyun with grim satisfaction. June nodded slowly. The strategic situation was clear. The remaining NAR fleet, once thousands strong, now reduced to fewer than 100 ships, had nowhere left to retreat. Behind them was only the outer darkness of the solar system, with no resources to sustain them. Ahead was the human blockade, preventing their return to the inner planets. "Let's hear what they have to say," June finally decided. They moved from the observation deck to the communication center. The room fell silent as they entered. Screens displayed tactical information, fleet positions, and system status reports. At the center was the communication array, ready to receive the NAR transmission. "Open the channel," ordered Admiral Hyun. The main screen activated, revealing the face of the NAR commander. 3 years of war had taught humans to read the subtle expressions of the alien face, the slight narrowing of large, dark eyes, the tightening of the lipless mouth. The commander was afraid, though trying not to show it. "You have pushed us beyond reasonable expectation," the alien began without preamble. "No species in recorded galactic history has reversed a NAR pacification operation. We aren't like other species," replied Admiral Hyun flatly. The NAR commander's head tilted slightly. A gesture they had learned indicated confusion or reassessment. "Your cities destroyed, your population decimated, your ecosystem damaged. By all logical analysis, you should have surrendered within days of our arrival." "That's because you don't understand humans," June said, stepping forward. "Logic isn't our only motivation." "What else motivates such persistence in the face of overwhelming odds?" the commander asked, genuine curiosity evident in his tone. June looked around at the humans manning the communication center, people from every corner of Earth united now not by nationality or ideology, but by their shared humanity. How could he explain to this alien what drove them? How could he convey the complex mixture of love, rage, hope, and sheer stubbornness that defined the human spirit? "We fight for home," he said simply. "We fight for each other. We fight because giving up isn't in our nature." The NAR commander was silent for a long moment. "These concepts are difficult to process within our collective understanding." "That's why you lost," said Professor Yoon. "You never tried to understand us. You just assumed we would behave like the other worlds. You conquered." The tension in the room was palpable as the NAR commander conferred with others off-screen. Finally, he turned back to face them. "The collective proposes cessation of hostilities," he stated. We will withdraw from your solar system and reclassify it as unsuitable for resource extraction. A murmur ran through the human crew. This was what they had fought for, yet the simple words seemed inadequate after so much sacrifice. "And the other worlds you've conquered?" asked June. "What of them?" The commander's expression shifted subtly. "That is not relevant to our current negotiation." Admiral Hyun's eyes narrowed. "It is to us. We want guarantees that you won't simply rebuild your fleet and return to Earth or any other inhabited world." Hours of tense negotiation followed. The Nar, accustomed to dictating terms, found themselves in the unfamiliar position of compromise. By ship's evening, the outline of an agreement had been reached. The Nar would withdraw beyond Pluto's orbit, leaving behind all mining and processing facilities they had established in the solar system. They would transmit the locations of all their bases on Earth and throughout the system, and they would agree to recognize Earth's sovereign claim to the entire solar system. In return, the humans would allow them safe passage out of the system and would not pursue their retreat. As the final terms were being prepared, June found himself alone with Professor Yoon in a quiet corner of the ship's mess hall. "Do you think they'll honor it?" she asked softly. "I think they're scared enough of us right now that they will," he replied, staring into his coffee cup. "We've become something they don't understand and can't predict. And after everything they did to Earth," her voice trailed off, the weight of all they had lost hanging in the air between them. "We rebuild," June said firmly. "We use what we've learned, their technology, their knowledge of the galaxy. We make sure we're ready if they or anyone else ever comes back." The signing ceremony took place the next day in neutral space between the two fleets. The human delegation transmitted from the Phoenix, the Nar from their command vessel. As Admiral Hyun formally accepted the Nar surrender on behalf of Earth, cheers erupted throughout the human fleet. But the most significant moment came after the formal proceedings. As the Nar fleet prepared to depart, their commander requested one final communication. "We have existed for millennia," he said, his voice transmitted to all human vessels. "We have conquered hundreds of worlds across 12 star systems. We have encountered many species, studied many civilizations." The commander paused, the alien features arranging themselves into what humans had come to recognize as solemn respect. "We have never encountered a species like yours," he continued. "You do not understand when you are defeated. You call retreat, strategic withdrawal, and defeat temporary setback. Your capacity for adaptation exceeds anything in our records." The communication screens flickered slightly as the Nar fleet began moving away from Europa, toward the distant reaches of the solar system. "This message is being transmitted to all spacefaring civilizations within our network," the commander concluded. "Consider this warning. Humanity is not to be provoked. Their resilience defies conventional assessment. Should you threaten their world, congratulations, you've just awakened humanity's wrath." As the Nar vessels disappeared into the darkness beyond Jupiter, Dr. June turned away from the viewport. Earth was waiting, damaged, scarred, but unbroken. And beyond that, stars beyond counting, with worlds they now knew were not empty. Humanity had survived its first contact with an alien civilization. It had endured a war unlike any in its history, and it had emerged not just intact, but transformed, united, space-capable, and with a reputation that would echo across the stars. The universe, June thought, had no idea what was coming next.